And now, from the CFTK TV studios, this is Northwest Connections with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Northwest Connections. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. The largest ever corporate commitment to mental health in Canada, Bell Let's Talk has a vision of Canada where everyone can get the mental health support they need to flourish. On today's Northwest Connections, we begin a conversation on men's mental health with Dudes Club's co-director, Frank Cohn.
It stands for Dudes United Defending Equality and Solidarity. Yeah. And there's the PG group and the Smithers group. They sometimes, depending who and where, they refer to Dakach men defending equality and solidarity. So there's a few different versions of the acronym that are out there, and then we don't even encourage, definitely don't mandate for any of the groups anywhere around BC or elsewhere in Canada, Turtle Island, for them to use our name. So our name and logo is available if any group wants to use it, if they feel it's helpful for them. But it's probably better for them to come up with their own name in their own language, or that has locally significant meaning for them.
The focus of this show, of course, is men's mental health, because unfortunately, there's resources out there, but there always seems to be that disconnect when it comes to men and actually accessing resources that are around them. Is that where kind of you get involved, or?
Yeah, and that's where the spaces, the gatherings, and the tools that we work on sharing with the guys, where they all get involved. So I even though I'm, I guess, trained as a social worker, I've taught, clinical social work over the years, I don't practice as a social worker here. I practice as an administrator, helping, to get the resources for the work and set up the systems for the work, but also to facilitate the community spaces. Back in 2017, I was the first employee here. I was part-time. So I was hired by one of the elders and one of the other co-founders. His name is Dr. Paul Gross. And he's still very active on our board of directors. And so they had gotten some funding from the Canadian Men's Health Foundation. And that funding was to take what had developed here in the downtown east side and what had been expanded up to Smithers, Whitsett, and Prince George. And then they had done a big 3-year research project on it. And the research findings were published in a paper in Canadian Family Physician. And they were very positive, and they really demonstrated the need for this on a community level. And they also really demonstrated the importance of men attending consistently. And so we really set out at that time to entrench those spaces and opportunities for guys to be able to attend these gatherings consistently in a non-programmatic and non-hierarchical way. So in a way that was always by the guys and for the guys. What happened in 2017 is that a partnership with the First Nations Health Authority led to an all of a sudden surge of an additional 40 communities that started adding in the men's wellness work. And so all of a sudden we went from 3 communities, because Smithers was still going, PG was still going, Whitsett had taken a different turn at the time, and so all of a sudden we were dealing with 50 communities, because in addition to the FNHA communities, we had a bunch of urban communities who had expressed interest, including Terrace back in the day. That was through Kermode. So the work quickly grew, and we needed to add team members. Now we've got, I think, 8 full-time team members. I'm still part-time, and I still have another job that I do as well. I serve elsewhere, just not too far away from here, as the executive director of an organization called VAST, or the Vancouver Association for Survivors of Torture. So that's an organization that works with people coming out of situations of war and political violence from all around the world. And, in the forced migration or forced displacement that they have gone through and the violence that they've been escaping and dealing with, there's unfortunately tremendous parallels with the local forced migrations of Indigenous peoples of these lands, forced off of their lands, forced into reserve system, forced into institutional systems, whether it's residential schools or incarceration or child welfare. So, unfortunately, far too many parallels in those experiences, but also in the recovery and the healing and the power of coming back.
Northwest Connections will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK TV studios, this is Northwest Connections with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Frequently overshadowed by conventional masculinity, men's mental health faces distinct challenges that result in underdiagnosis, postponed treatment, and increased suicide rates. Let us re-engage the discussion as Frank reveals how the Deuce Club is creating a positive impact.
But those community spaces are led by community for community. That's really the distinction. So in our work and in the space that I gave you a tour of here, there's 6 different groups that run out of this space. And in each of those groups, if myself or any of other team members are not there, the group still happens. And the guys still get what they need. So it's really not about me, and it's not about the other guys from our team. It's about the guys establishing a space for each other, for themselves, deciding on what activities they want to do in that space, ensuring that there's some basic guidelines for the space. Like I'll just show you one of those, which happens to be right here. This is the youth group that operates out of this space, and these are their guidelines. No slurs, which, that's hard to achieve, but no bullying, keep the beef outside, respectful communication and language, be welcoming, take care of the clubhouse. That's how the guys govern what happens in the spaces that they're in a community agreement that they develop together and that they sign on to together. Our work is really based on the idea that, and the research that shows that it's isolation, which is one of the biggest contributors to negative health outcomes for men, health and mental health, physical and mental health. And so we really believe strongly that by addressing the social isolation and by creating connections for guys to each other, to culture, to language, to land, and to activities, that those guys will find better health outcomes for themselves.
Have you seen some changes that's really been able to help serve the community that's around you?
Absolutely, yeah. It's really quite incredible to see, actually, because a lot of the guys who are either the champions or the knowledge holders or the elders of the different groups, are guys who, 5-10 years ago were sitting in a corner by themselves, not talking to anyone. And just showing up for the meal or just showing up for the bingo or just for the coffee. And now those are the guys who are opening the space, closing the space, making it happen. So the transformations are just phenomenal. And we're really blessed here that we have this physical space that we have access to. And, there's so much knowledge in this community. I'm just glancing over at the guys going through these drums. There's another guy walking in who's a carver, and all different medicines and different crafts and cultural things that the guys share with each other. And, we're talking about guys who maybe the way that they were raised and maybe the way that, things were when they went to public school or in their neighborhood or whatever, or when they were looking for their first job or housing, what they faced was a sense of discrimination based on their identity, and a sense of, oh, maybe I need to hide my identity or pretend to be someone I'm not in order to try to fit in order to try to be safe. And for a lot of guys, that's been 3, 4, 5, 6 decades of them suppressing what should be and is a real benefit to their health and mental health. And so, these spaces are spaces where that knowledge can be shared in safe ways, in good ways, and where, guys can be teaching and supporting each other. And it's really powerful to watch, because there's just so much skill and so much knowledge that's out there amongst the guys. There's also a lot of really tough experiences that a lot of the guys have had over the years. So, it takes time for them to leave the armor at the door. It takes time for them to come out of their shell. It takes time for them to rebuild trust and rebuild those connections in safe ways.
Northwest Connections will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK TV studios, this is Northwest Connections with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Northwest Connections. Founded in the Vancouver downtown east side in 2010, the Dudes Club has established in various communities throughout British Columbia. The Dudes Club serves as an effective model for promoting wellness among Indigenous men, fostering solidarity and brotherhood, and helping men to rediscover their pride and purpose in life. Let us return to the conversation with Frank.
We are quite clear with the guys that we're not here as a service provider. We're not here to, help you with your taxes or your housing search or your, to do individual counseling sessions. But by coming into this community, you will gain access to those resources because the knowledge exists within the community. So yeah, at the front, we've got pamphlets that direct people to some of our partners. And yes, once each group is established, then that group is able to decide when and how they want to invite a partner or a practitioner into their group to share their knowledge. So for example, a group will decide like, hey, we'd like to hear from someone about diabetes. And so they'll invite a practitioner in who can come and talk about that. But it's not about the guys having to go to cold or sterile feeling clinic to get that information. It's about this is our space. We have our activities, we have our food, we have our elder, we have our opening, we have our closing, and within that we're going to invite someone to come and share their knowledge with us. And typically, we always recommend that those partners limit their interventions to a short 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So there's a lot of resources out here in the neighborhood. But we also know that, even if the resources are perfect, it doesn't mean that the guys are going to access them if they don't feel that trust. So seeing a doctor is a great example, right? Like how many guys just refuse to go see a doctor or won't go see a doctor until it's too late? And so a big part of the value of coming together in a group and in a gathering space is that they'll be able to hear from other guys who say like, oh, this clinic is okay. This doctor's okay. I feel safe going to this doctor. I had a really horrible experience going to this hospital or going to this doctor or clinic. Don't go there. And so, we know that the guys end up getting access to those practitioners because of that peer support for them. There's a saying that if you want men to talk, give them something to do with their hands. It's very true. Yeah, very much so. We do talking circles sometimes, and some of the groups around BC, like their format is a little bit more of a talking circle type of format. But even within that format, there's no requirement that everybody speaks everybody can pass, if it's their turn and they don't want to say something, they can pass. But then also, they know that, okay, maybe we're talking for a bit now, but we're going to do an activity later, or we just did an activity and that helped us to kind of chill out, and now we're going to talk a little bit. Clinton Barton, who works at Providence Health, together with him and a few others, they've developed something called Indigenous Voices of Community. And one of the things that the IVOC, Indigenous Voices of Community guys do is they go and visit guys who are in hospital and don't have family, don't have friends. So they are that literal buddy system for guys who are going through a tough time in the healthcare system. But generally, that's the idea that, and to be sure, there's certainly a lot of guys in this community who are identified as being in recovery, and are not using any substances or alcohol anymore. But there's other guys who are still using, and there's other guys who are very much still struggling with their addictions, and we know the dangers of using alone. And so by creating spaces of no judgment, then we're able to check in with guys, and we're able to give them a space where they can check in with each other, and reduce that possibility that someone's out there using alone. And by seeing other guys get vulnerable, whether that's a direct buddy or just another guy across the circle or across the room, then that gives permission to get vulnerable yourself. And so that's saying, like, I'm experiencing this pain in this particular part of my body. I'm either gonna be a tough guy and just hold it and not go seek help and I'll be fine, or I'm gonna hear another guy say, oh, I had a similar pain, I went to the doctor, I got a test, it turned out I needed this tumor removed, I needed this medication immediately, and I needed to change some thing in my diet or in my lifestyle, and I'm okay now. And that's more powerful than any professional advice that we could give to anyone.
Northwest Connections will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK TV studios, this is Northwest Connections with your host, Robert Pictou.
The phrase, leave your armor at the door, is an expression that suggests putting aside emotional defenses, facades, or defensive walls to allow oneself to be vulnerable, open, and genuine in a given situation. In this final segment of Northwest Connections, Frank shares how this phrase transforms the Dudes Club.
As far as I understand, Henry Charles, who was a Musqueam elder and Hulkaminum speaker, and it was one of his kind of go-to sayings with the guys. He was one of the guys who helped start the group, in the original Dudes Club group in the downtown east side.
We just got a delivery of a bunch of drum frames and skins came in the door over there. But no, I joined this work here in 2017. So I guess that's 8.5 years ago now. And at the time, I was the first employee of the organization.
Yeah, so the youth club is something that was developed internally 4 years ago, because we realized that the average age of the guys in the different dudes clubs was 46. So, for a 21-year-old, not as appealing necessarily, especially if a bunch of those guys are your uncles and your cousins and you're kind of bored of their stories already. It's a youth focused space. But then there's another youth organization called Red Fox, which comes in Saturdays is their day here. And then there's for example, Monday nights we have a Nishka dance group that's here. On Friday nights we have a Sundance family that's here doing drumming. A lot of different community partners who use the space primarily for culturally related things that are hard to find space for. I would just mention, like, right now we've got the champion of the Vancouver Dudes Club, which is not here. It's about 15-minute walk away from here. He, as well as one of our longtime team members, Kyle Sam from Prince George, and another longtime Dudes member, Dwayne from Prince George. The three of them are in Whitehorse right now. And they're outside of Whitehorse, a couple hours outside, working with the Kwanlin Dun First Nation, and working with the guys on land-based activities related to medicine and hunting and different cultural stuff. And so, the role that our team plays is, yes, it's here in the office, but it's also very much out in community. Yeah, and partway through the day today, people will start to leave from this space and head over to the downtown east side, because there's a Vancouver Dudes Club gathering tonight, and that's an important space for the guys to go to. Throughout the week, though, there's different gatherings all over the place. Each one is located within a host agency. So we serve as the host agency for a few of them, but most of them, the host agency is a friendship center or a health clinic, or in rare cases like a band office, or some kind of community partner. Like Positive Living North was the partner in Prince George and Smithers for many years, and they were the host of the men's groups. We know that there's a huge amount, and with very good reason and very good need, there's a huge amount of support for women's activities and women to come together to work on themselves and to support each other. And we know that when it comes to men, there's just not a lot of those spaces. And it can be a little confusing and confounding, because it's like, well, we live in a patriarchy. We live in a male-dominated society, but then when we break that down, we have to understand we live in a colonial patriarchy, and we live in an intersectional patriarchy, where not all of the benefits of the patriarchy reach to all men. Like, yes, men are overrepresented in leadership positions in government and private companies and organizations and everything, but often those positions can be kind of toxic. They can be kind of colonially imposed. And there's a lot of men, whether it's because of their indigenous identities, or because of socioeconomic situation that they're in, or because of racism, that they're excluded from those benefits of patriarchy. So even it's a bit of a conundrum, because even though, yes, men still hold too much power in our society, that power doesn't extend to all men, and it's predicated on an exploitation and an oppression of men of certain backgrounds who don't have access to those same benefits.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Northwest Connections. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pichtel.